really interesting on that last talk was this idea of, once you're growing to a certain size, splitting, like cloning yourself or becoming more specific in what you're doing in your DAO. And we've kind of talked about that at Raid Guild as well, that would be something that eventually we would get more specificity into our groups and, split into a designer DAO, a more back-end DAO,
Yeah, I like that idea too. It becomes like a multi-core processor where even if we have a front-end DAO, at one point the front-end DAO would get big enough that you need to split up into multiple different front-end DAOs. So you just have like a unified framework to operate, but like there's kind of multiple units operating with that same framework, but in parallel rather than one monolithic thing.
Yeah, it also like starts creating this kind of market of between DAOs, right? So it's like different DAOs offering different services, and so you have this like services offered market, totally decentralized and flat. That's really interesting when a backend dev can reach over to like the backend dev DAO, can go talk to the front end dev DAO, who would then maybe go hire a designer DAO, and maybe initially we have our front tavern DAO that is sourcing projects, and so it'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I think it'd be important to like keep those borders between the groups fluid and amorphous still, so people can like move around. Not just like just to like fight that segmentation. You don't really want the groups to like segment themselves from one another, but just maintain their own agility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like keeping like you don't want to create more silos, but like still allow people to turn into like individual like groups of units, but all the units kind of moving in sync and moving with the same kind of end goals and general direction. With this kind of like one monolith.
Yeah, because you want to be kind of liquid in your membership, even, I guess, and how like not only is there going to be like we don't want the silos, but we want things to be kind of merged together that way, especially when forming smaller teams. So it'd almost be like if you're a project manager, you're walking in like a shopping experience, and let's grab some guys here from here. We know they work together from these different DAOs, build this team.
Yeah.
Well, I guess should I go ahead and get started?
Sure.
29.
Okay.
Yes, you can go.
Well, that was mainly Raid Guild members just talking there. So, well, this will probably be pretty lax and kind of a view into our roundtables. So if you guys ever want to speak up, then go ahead. Okay, so first off, thanks to the MetaFam. Like, this is pretty amazing that you guys were able to pull this off. Peeth, MetaDreamer, Yaler, all the mods, all the other people that have been contributing. It's been an epic day. Over 24 hours of content on YouTube. 30, 40, 50 members or 50 people in different meetups, YouTube streams. Epic, guys. Good work. So my name's Dekan. I am a co-founder of Odyssey Automation, a Web3 dev shop. Early member, one of the first members of Cartel, and now currently in a collaboration called Raid Guild. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today is Raid Guild. Initially, let's see. So a little history with like where Raid Guild came from. So MetaCartel was initially just kind of like a crazy idea, getting a lot of people together with similar interests, using Moloch DAO to kind of unite them, bring them together through skin in the game, building up kind of a web of trust and this relationship between everyone kind of instantly using the DAO. We had a very early meeting called MCon where we all came together, and so these are people from all over the world. We all met in Denver, Colorado, and just had a working session. And what was really interesting is, all these people are all now so aligned, and they're friends, right? And we're all in a room, and we're talking about problems that you would usually talk about in some, like in a company trying to solve problems, but we're just like working together, and it was really cool. And we started noticing a few things, and not only was our ethos aligned, we started noticing kind of like we're talking about what our kind of core things were. And really we wanted to keep things simple. We wanted to have fun, experiment, ship, do things like that we liked doing, and we wanted to do it in Ethereum, and we wanted to experiment with application layer of dApps and the Ethereum. We started seeing that there was a lot of talent in our group, and from all different spectrums, and so we started working on different projects together, started making smaller teams, and it's kind of like actually what we were just talking about. Cartel split off the Raid Guild, which was a team of developers and designers, product people, to start working on projects. This was kind of just a small idea at first, and then it kind of slowly grew. Over the last 2 months, or even month and a half, we really kind of got legitimate. We started taking in new members. At ETH Denver, we got T-shirts, and we just started like talking to other devs in the space that were interested, and the reception we got was super cool. Doing this kind of thing, like a worker-owned community, co-op kind of thing, like really struck a nerve with a lot of people, and a lot of people I think are seeing it as a way of potentially changing the future of work. So the name of Raid Guild spun off. We have our own DAO now, also a Moloch DAO. There's a 1 WETH membership fee, which right now is actually pretty cheap. But the importance of having that membership fee, which it's not necessarily a fee, you're actually getting shares in return. Your shares are never going to go up in value because this is basically a grant-giving DAO. But we're a community that's sharing a purpose, and we have value that we can deploy to things very fast, which is super powerful, especially when making these like little micro grants, and being able to take these experiments, like things that we just want to do as devs, without any huge market research or anything, just maybe something that's inside that we know there's a need inside of our community or inside of MetaCartel. Just like throwing a little bit of money at it so we can pursue it. And then you never know actually what you might get. Sometimes just a fun week of work, sometimes something that can bloom into something more. So that's why this talk, I called it a Raid Guild TNSTAAFL, which if you're a Heinlein reader, you might recognize that term. But basically what it means is there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. And it goes to both a skin in the game reference and also to opportunity cost. So, everything you do, there's some cost to it. And if a community is free to join, then it's not actually free. You're losing you're spending opportunity time that you could be doing something else, basically. But putting actual funds into it like really legitimizes that your skin is in the game. It unites people right away. It's important. So yeah, let me actually share my screen for a little bit. So this is the Raid Guild webpage. This is kind of a good place if you want to come find out some more information about Raid Guild. You can either join us, become a member if you're a dev or designer or someone in the product space. Then we probably would like to hear from you. And if it sounds like something interesting, that's cool. I mean, really what we are is we're this collective. We're a community of people. We're not necessarily a company. We're a way to try to like leverage network, which if you're a freelancer, you know that leveraging your network is super important. So this is a way to come into the space. If you have a potential client, you can build a team of some of the best developers and designers in the space and work together, share each other's knowledge, share each other's input. So let's see. This is our kind of a D&D feel because it is kind of like a campaign that we're on. We're like trying to push these experiments forward. It's very much an experiment. So right now we have about 30 members and about another 30 or 40 on deck. We just finished our first wave of new member entries, and they were after December. We got such an awesome interest, and that we kind of started to notice some struggles of having something that is so decentralized and really chaotic at sometimes. There's some nice things about that. I think it allows people to be very creative and free and self-sovereign and doing things that they want to do. But the hard parts about that is on the upside of how do we handle like a big amount of interest all of a sudden. How do we make sure we're getting people in and reviewing their join forms and make sure that any new clients that are trying to contact us are handled okay. One of the things we did was we split off into two parts, a front tavern and a back tavern. And the front tavern basically is like our client-facing people, the ones that are willing to talk to the client, find out what their problems is, do an initial spec on a project, and then hand it over to a project manager that can build a team and start working on this project. And so that team is actually the back tavern. So the PM kind of people we call the rogues. They're the ones that kind of flow between the front tavern and the back tavern. Front end developers are our warriors. Back end devs and Solidity devs are dark mages. I believe we have a treasury guy. He's our angry dwarf. And so we meet once a week, and we're bringing in new members. We just got our first wave of new members. And one thing we were worried about, and we may still see how this goes, is that when a new member comes on, like how do we point them to do something? Like how do we get them engaged in the community? But what's interesting is, and I think it goes back to the skin in the game thing, that when people join, they're start engaging and they start looking for projects together. They start hopping into our Discord and just talking to potential clients that have also hopped in and asking questions. And that wasn't something we initially expected. Like one of our newest members, Jalil, this last week just stepped in and was like, "Oh, this is a cool project. Yeah, let me see if I can check it out and see how it works." So this is like just unexpected, a problem that we thought would be worse, but actually is turning out to be not as bad. So we are still learning. This is experiment. There's a lot of things we're trying to get done. And eventually, as we continue to grow, I think we will probably divide, like we were talking about before the talk. So some of our other current projects, like Pokeball DAO House is a big one. That one was actually started with Cartel, but I kind of consider it the first Raid Guild project because it was Cartel people, and we decided to do a tool that allowed us to work with our Moloch contract a little better.
That was literally called Raid Party Zero.
Yeah,
also.
Yeah, totally. And so we and it was an internal project. It was just like, oh, cool, let's take this contract, let's put a little interface on it. We worked with the Abridged guys, put in a contract wallet, and just started experimenting. We did like a 2-week sprint, got something up, and from there it's kind of evolved because we started getting requests from other people. The first one was Makoto with the Orochi DAO, that they wanted to actually kind of clone what we were doing, and they wanted to interface too. Initially, we just had like a repo and some serverless YAML files that would be deployed, and it was a super pain. But we've got to a point now where everything's kind of well, not everything. Like, we're still split between this DAO house and Pokemall kind of interface because they were both built through hackathons and super small grants. But now you can launch your own DAO, and you can also have your own interface for whatever, and even Moloch V2s now. So over the last week or 2 weeks, really, since ETH Denver, we updated and we got it so that you can now summon Moloch V2 DAO. So you can just switch over here, switch to Moloch V2, and there, summon your DAO. Then you can come in and, like, once you get your DAO summoned, let's see. Come into your Pokemall, and this is kind of the voting interface, the proposal interface. So you can see all the past proposals. A great talk earlier with Juliana, that they've started a DAO, and they actually used other people's DAOs as like a starting off place to look at and see what kind of things people were doing. So here's a list of our proposals. It's new member proposals. It's projects, internal projects that we've been working on. It's a request for shares. Raid Guild uses shares in a little different way, more as like a proof of work. There's some changes in Moloch V2 from Moloch V1, and they're all pretty good. They're actually very cool. So I think if you guys want to know more about Moloch V2, then hit me up. There's some really interesting things there. Let's see what else. So this was our raid ship for the week, was Coletta XP. This was the one-ups that have been kind of going around, or if you made it into the other forum. Basically, a Telegram bot that you can do a one-up. This was just like a project that Eric started a long time ago, and we called it Pepper 4D. And then we've just decided this week to strip it way down and just get something kind of fun to play with during this, and hopefully evolve it into more of a social accounting kind of system, integrate things like source cred and DAO memberships, NFT kind of rewards, but more linked into where we all hang out in Telegram or Discord. MetaGame, that's another project we're going to be starting. Another Moloch project we've recently started is called Minions, which is going to allow Molochs to vote on arbitrary external contract calls. So, that could be used. A DAO could own an ERC20, and the DAO could manage how it's minted or burned. A DAO could mint some NFTs for people. That there's, So that's another kind of fun one. One of our members, Nick Ward, just wrote up a contract, and Tommy, Proof of Tom, is working on a front end for that. We got a lot of different cool things happening, and a lot of things in the pipeline, a lot of different things we're talking about doing, and so it's just been really fun right now. I think that's basically what I want to say. Do you guys have anything you want to add?
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to say is like the biggest part about raid guilds, I think, is just like the network effects of, you know, being in touch and like all like the cross pollination between the members. Like all of us are working on, you know, various different things in the ecosystem, and, you know, just being able to connect with and, you know, band together with other people building in the ecosystem, I think is like super powerful, and we can kind of share resources and then, you know, share our learnings with the rest of the wider ecosystem and kind of grow it that way. Like even MetaGame, for example, you know, like this InterCon could be considered a raid guild project because all the members of MetaGame, or like the main members of MetaGame who put this together, are members of raid guild, and raid guild is going to be building MetaGame. So you know, everything becomes like super interconnected, and that's how we, you know, take these communities to the next level, where instead of like siloed projects and, you know, a bunch of different things, we have like a network of value creation, and it builds just one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I'd second that.
Yep.
I think it's really emerged. I think it's really emerged that way also, which is nice, because it's just you know, nature taking its course, so to speak, instead of someone trying to like prescribe a process. It's just kind of what happened.
Yeah, and that's a good point. That's something that's like really core in the way we make decisions, is that we don't want to build processes that are too restrictive, basically. Even though that can help, I think, in ways, but especially with some of our ops problems and things like that, we still want this emergent stuff to be able to happen. Like the emergent things is where like the real money is, you know. Meaning, that's just where the real fire is.
Yeah, for sure. And like that's the funny thing, is like nature pretty much always knows the best way to design things. So the more we can just kind of follow what nature is guiding us to, the better off. That's kind of been a core part of Matter. Like it just kind of like happened, right? No one really had to make it happen, force it to happen. It just, you know, the certain people were at a certain place in time and certain things happened. You know, these things kind of coagulated in this really nice way.
Do we got any questions? Let's see, is there any?
Yeah, hey, my name's John Tompkins. Been kind of lurking around the Meta Cartel, Raid Guild, all that stuff for a while. More of a product economics guy, and I'm working on a couple kind of main projects myself in the Ethereum DeFi kind of space, but interested in, I think I kind of want to do more freelance, less structured stuff going forward. I guess like maybe quick high level for, you know, idea pops up, people kind of come around it, then like something gets built, then like what happens with it? Like do some of them spur off into like actual companies that people have stake in? Does like the Raid Guild have stake in things, or is it mostly focused more on just kind of tools for the community right now that kind of, you know, bolster other projects? More, I guess, like how things form into, you know, functional, either, you know, for profit or not for profit, but who's supporting things as they go forward. Like, you know, how do you transition from idea to, you know, existing product and like that next phase, I guess is more the main question.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and so that's something we've actually been talking about. We have some pretty cool partnerships possibly coming up soon. We've been working with Consensus, 1 million devs, with some really interesting things that may be coming out over the next few months, which is basically what you're saying in a way, because it's we're going to be creating kind of a wayfinding system for founders and funders and talent to kind of find each other, build these teams, go on, do proofs of concepts on some ideas, do real user testing, and try to push it into an MVP. And so these projects are going to be ones that we're pushing towards revenue generation. And so there's a lot of interesting things that could happen there with even some experiments like what MetaCartel Ventures is doing. But basically, with revenue tokens, equity shares, things like that, where all the teams involved, even in this more flat, decentralized kind of manner, could have some stake in the project. And I think that's really interesting on a way to incentivize all the teams and not just have a bunch of robots writing code. So
I agree that like having that upside availability is there is needs to be there, but then you have these issues where if it's like a governance and liquidity pool based kind of product, which a lot of these things are, if you want to eventually hand over like the protocol portion of it to eventually be kind of token driven or some other governance driven, if you're selling, if you're getting a couple $1 million of investment from some VC fund or whatever, they probably want a decent stake of that. And then does that put the decentralization of it, at risk? So thinking about that.
Yeah. So, I think products can evolve in different ways, and they don't always have to be completely decentralized. And if an investor puts a lot of money in it, then they should have a lot of stake in it. And so, but sharing a little bit of that across the teams, I think, is something worth exploring more.
Cool.
Yeah, I think TLDR2 in response is like, I mean, that whole point that you're talking about is a thing that the guild is like seeking, is one of our side missions or whatever. Like, how do we build sustainable product development going forward? And how do we build sustainable products and sustainability across the entire ecosystem as far as that concerned. So this is one of our side missions also. So we're something that we're going towards, even though there's no answer for it today.
Yep. Yeah, and to talk on some of these partnerships, I mean, we're getting. We've been talking with Aragon on a cool project. We've been talking with Relays and 1 Million Devs. We're starting to build a pretty good and powerful network together. Awesome. And I think there's, like, to even talk a little bit more about Web3 and kind of like this space is a little different than Web2 because because it is so community strong and open source strong, and there's modularity between different things, and there's these Lego blocks. So we may be like trying to think of a different way of like, how can we get new projects to actually think about up front and how they can grow together and align their incentives instead of, everyone just trying to beat each other to market. Maybe there's more collaboration that could happen there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very interesting. All right. Last thing from my end is like a more of a product on a dev guy. I mean, what's to get involved? I guess just throw in a proposal, or is there things you recommend doing before you kind of put in a proposal to join?
Yeah, just go to the website, do the join form, and it's just a type form that has some things like just to kind of let us scan it quickly. Yeah, and then just dive into the Discord and start talking about ideas and get to know, introduce yourself. So sorry to some of the people that are like waiting in the queue. We got through the first wave. We added about 10 new members. And we're just trying to do this a little kind of organically and slow, so we're not just rushed with everyone. But if you're interested, definitely just start participating.
Cool.
Any other questions?
No more question.
Raid Guild for the win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming to the talk. Thanks for the questions, and thanks for jumping in, MetaDreamer and Little Chili there. Yeah, if come to our Discord, come check us out on our webpage, raidguild.org, and if you'd like to